Well, if you just joining us, you're watching GBS Morning Extra, here, coming to you live here from the GBS studios in Nairobi. And as I promised earlier, today we are going to talk about matters politics. It's Monday, and of course, that's what we do here. And today's politics is somewhat slightly different. Quite a twist that we saw over the weekend, and what happened in Kibra was quite interesting. And, you know, the deputy president, storming the constituency there for campaigns for the Jubilee candidate, MacDonald Mariga, and also the ODM team taking with them leaders from unlikely quarters, and that's among the things that we are going to discuss today. Also, we are going to look into the BBI politics, and it's quite interesting that leaders are being asked to decide and to declare their stand on whether they support the BBI or not. Other leaders also alluding to the fact that those supporting the BBI or the BBI initiative is actually going to give us the next government, and such talks coming from leaders who have themselves declared earlier that they don't know the content of the document, because the document has actually not been made public. We are still waiting for the document to be presented to the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and also the President, who will be receiving the document officially from the BBI team that traversed the country to actually collect the views of different groups in the country to just come up with a wholesome document that will help us go forward. But that we'll discuss later. To start right now with me in studio, I have Owuor Omondi. Owuor Omondi is a student of political science and also is a political analyst himself. He's here with us today, and we are going to discuss matters politics. Owuor, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, my brother.
You saw what happened in Kibra, and before we actually get more into that, I'd like us, my director, if it is able right now, to play for us a clip that really shocked many in the political arena. And this is the Governor Anne Waiguru in Kibra campaigning for a ODM candidate, while on the other side of Kibra, actually, we had the deputy president also campaigning for the Jubilee candidate. We know that Waiguru was elected on a Jubilee ticket and is a Jubilee member, a very senior Jubilee member, if I may say that. Let's just listen in to what Waiguru had to say about the by-elections in Kibra.
Mimi leo nimekuja hapa kwa heshima kuu ambayo niko nayo kwa sababu ya Baba Right Honorable His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. Na hiyo heshima ni kwa sababu ya ile handshake alipatiana na Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, president wa nchi hii. Na sisi kama viongozi ambao wanaelewa maneno ya handshake, tumesema lazima leo tusimame, tuongee kinaganaga bila kuficha. Tuseme hii nchi iko na amani kwa sababu ya handshake. Kweli au si kweli? Hii nchi iko na amani kwa sababu ya nini? Ya handshake. Na hatuwezi kubali hiyo handshake iharibike. Kwa hivyo hao viongozi wengine ambao wanataka kuchaguliwa Kibera, ati hao ndio wataleta maendeleo, wacha niwaambie wana Kibera, mnasikiza? Hiyo kazi yenye ilifanywa Kibera si imefanywa muda wa Uhuru Kenyatta? Na si mbunge alikuwa Ken Okoth? Si mbunge alikuwa wa ODM? Na serikali ilikuwa ya Jubilee? Msikubali kudanganywa ati maendeleo itakuja mkichagua tu kiongozi wa upande moja. Sisi tunasimama na handshake. Na ule mtu tunataka mchague ni nani? Tunasema mchague nani? Bernard. Kwa sababu tunajua maana ya handshake.
Well, quite interesting. What do you make of that?
Okay, for me, I am just happy that this such things are coming into play right now, because these are things that we anticipated. You see, Anne Waiguru is a governor that was elected on a Jubilee ticket.
Yes.
But you must also acknowledge that she's in team embrace. That means the women who are in support of the handshake. And if you're in support of the handshake, then it means that you're in support of the BBI. So Anne Waiguru is just extending the spirit of BBI into Kibra.
Into the Kibra
by-elections. And she's very clear. She has come out in the open, and she's saying she wants to talk kinaganaga about the politics of Kibra. So she has been supporting Imran Okoth, but from the behind stage. And she's now just taking the scene.
Yeah, she just came out in front to make it public.
Yes.
When I listened to her speech, there's this viongozi wengine. Who is viongozi wengine? You know, viongozi wengine, when you listen to her, it seems like she's directing this to another person who, I don't want to say much, but another person who was still in the very vicinity in Kibra the same day that they were campaigning for Imran. You know, viongozi wengine ambao wanadai ya kwamba lazima ukue kwa serikali ndio uweze kupata maendeleo. Viongozi wengine, who is she alluding to? In your opinion?
In my opinion, that is a very open suggestion, and I will make it, because it was only yesterday when we had the campaigns for the both factions.
Yes.
ODM and I don't want to say Jubilee, I don't know what I'll call it, but a section of Jubilee leaders were campaigning for McDonald Mariga, while the ODM team led by the ex-Prime Minister Raila Odinga were also on the other side. And when Waiguru was saying this, she was referring only to none other than the Deputy President.
Who was on the other side of the same constituency campaign.
Yes, yes. So you see, the Deputy President is trying to bring the notion that the Kibra people are where they are because they have not had sufficient leadership. So he is persuading the people of Kibra to elect somebody from the government so that the Kibra people can get services. But that is not how it should be, because we know that we are both alive to the records of the late Ken Okoth.
Sure.
And he was one of the performing. So that is politics. And people must really now choose.
So the guys are, basically what they're doing is just trying to woo voters. But then something that I would like maybe to delve a little bit more into, which actually is quite interesting, that development comes to a region only if the region is aligned to the current regime. How true is that? And is that even something that we should be talking about in the Kenya today?
That is where I will tell you one thing. Kenya is suffering from one particular disease, which is called leadership dishonesty. And this thing started with the government of Jomo Kenyatta, the founding father, when there were very harsh policies against other sections of the country to only ensure that the constituencies and the regions that were in support of his ideologies and of his tenure got the services. Take, for example, the Nyanza, the Western, the North Rift. We can name it, the coastal region, where again is developed in coast, if not Mombasa, which is actually not even developed. But it is the leading region in
we've seen quite a number of development projects being put up there in places like Lamu. But places like Kwale today, we have mining that is going on there and so on and so forth.
I'm aware to the fact that there are such projects, but if you go deep down into the villages, then there are situations that Kenya should actually have stepped above. People actually are still dying of malnutrition in certain areas, regions of the coast and northeastern province. So, like I was saying, our leaders have decided to maintain the rhetoric that only people who are alluded to the government can actually get government services. But this is Kenya, and people have a right to choose which leader to support. So we cannot actually curtail leadership initiatives for particular regions because they didn't really push for positions. I think that is not what the DP ought to have said. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because it's quite interesting. I don't know if we can get that bite and then listen to it a little bit later, because it's worrying. Because if a deputy president of a country can say that for you now it is your chance now to see development, and the only way you're going to see development or your bridge to development is by you electing this guy so that we can bring you inside the government, which means if they are not in the government, if it's an opposition stronghold, then development cannot come to them. And it's quite clear. He didn't mince his words. He didn't mince his words. Hii ni daraja yenyu ya kuingia kwa serikali. Meaning, if you do not elect this guy, then what happens?
So, according to the DP's words, which I'm actually shocked to listen to such words come from a deputy president of his cadre, because he's actually showing the people of Kibra that maybe for one time or another time that your projects might have failed, it was caused by you not supporting the government.
You being outside
government, you being in the opposition. So he's telling them, if you want to come from this suffering, if you want me to leverage you, then you have to embrace my ideology. But I think the Jubilee government actually should have focused much on their Big Four agenda, which they initiated in their second tenure.
Yes.
And I believe that is what would have really helped Kenya and would have left a legacy for the president and the deputy. But all this seems to have gone under the carpet with the handshake. And it is quite absurd because he just came to the open and informed the people of Kibra that their failure or their situation or the condition they actually are in are because they're not in government.
But then wouldn't it be a bit off if we say that the DP's views are the president's views, because the president has consistently been talking about muache mambo ya siasa, tufanye siasa ya maendeleo. And that's why wherever, the big guy, I mean, he's desisted completely from engaging in politics, especially the 2022 politics. And he's always focusing on his legacy, which is the Big Four agenda. He's talking about food security, he's talking about affordable housing, he's talking about universal health, and also he's talking about the issue of, industries and everything. Aren't these just the DP's views, and as opposed to saying that, if we try to tie this to, the president or the Jubilee missing or focusing on, these politics, and as opposed to the Big Four agenda, it's always been, Ruto's agenda has always been 2022 and never the Big Four agenda. The Big Four agenda is the president's agenda.
Okay. I think you've spoken much of the president, and at this point in time, we can already anticipate, or we can already see his stand in concern to politics. And I will tell you that if the president is in support of the BBI, then it means he will have taken a position for 2022. So I don't think much is really being done concerned to the Big Four agenda, which was a very good agenda for the country to at least elevate our conditions, both economically and to other spheres of life, like social life.
Socially as well.
But I think purely right now, Kenya is doing politics than development. And if you ask me if the Big Four agenda will succeed, then I can't clearly tell you. But what I know is that much is not being really done to ensure that these plans succeed.
Why wouldn't it work?
Because
In your own opinion, why wouldn't it work?
from my own opinion, the leaders in government have really gotten into politics, which is part of their duty, but they have seemed to embrace politics more than their positions. It seems that they're forgetting about why we elected them and are only fighting for their own interests.
Okay.
The Big Four agenda would have been made easier or would have easily succeeded when both the president and his deputy were in support of it, because it would have been a government agenda as that.
Yes.
But with this divide of Tanga and Kieleweke,
Yes.
everything is being fought around left, right, and center.
So it's two factions. It remains to be just a section of the Jubilee Party is focused on the Big Four agenda.
Yes.
The other section is
not focused on it.
Uh-huh.
So, and they are, in the process, they are fighting it. You understand? Because it is not their interest now. We cannot say it is a wholesome Jubilee agenda and initiative. It is for a particular section, and some section are against it.
The deputy president has been traversing the country, and wherever he goes anasema yeye amekuja kuzindua miradi zile ambazo rais mwenyewe alianzisha. And some of these initiatives are actually still under issues to do with health, issues to do with housing, and so on and so forth. Isn't that still championing for the Big Four agenda?
I think the DP has been very tactical again, because going against the president live will be a different thing, and it could amount to insubordination. So I think as of now, things are just being taken with the temperature they deserve until a later date. It's like issues are being postponed.
So it's cooking.
Yes,
something is cooking.
It will not take long before we can see this faction in Jubilee, sorry. And
part ways officially now.
Yes,
openly.
in front.
So are we looking at resignations from the government or something of the sort? Because if they decide to go head on, then it wouldn't be easy for a deputy president and a president to work together if they are not.
That is why things are being contained as they are. That is why the DP has to speak positively about government agendas, because he has to maintain his role as the DP. But as a person, the DP has his own interests, which he does not want to show clearly. And we know he's a guy who is dedicated. I won't fail to acknowledge that.
Yes.
He has really been committed, and he has served as a DP.
And he's consistent as well.
Yes, he has succeeded in other areas and failed in other areas. So he's a good DP, and if he's to promise us a good Kenya, then he must continue serving in unison with his boss, so to say.
Listen, if you put your ear to the ground, you realize that there's a lot of rhetoric right now.
Yes.
There's a lot of issues that are actually tearing apart the Jubilee as a party and the administration today, because we have, issues that come up from, allegations of, assassination allegations, to now the issues of Mao, where, leaders have actually come out strongly, and it has even forced the DPP, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to summon some of them, due to what they spoke. And we also have had the Director of Public, the Kinoti's office, the DCI's office, summon also some of them to go and record statements where leaders actually come out clearly and oppose government initiatives like the eviction. And they do not actually, as far as they are concerned, they do not acknowledge that the Mao eviction is a government initiative. What they still believe is that it is a personal initiative by Kiriako Tobiko, the CS, and I don't know why, but the president is not saying anything about it.
So again, I think the government was so harsh on this Mao eviction issue. Actually, I supported the evictions, but I don't support the way or the manner in which it was conducted. Because these are individuals who bought land, like any other Kenyan could purchase land in any other region,
Yes.
and were accorded with title deeds, it means that they are there legally. So if the government really wanted to evict people from Mau, it would have done it in the modest way possible, at least to compensate or to find other lands which these particular persons would have been settled. In the news yesterday, there's a guy who committed murder because he was worried the people he had issued with land, the people he had sold land to, will come demanding for their money. So there was somebody who committed murder yesterday. Yeah. So you see such situations, and
So
when
those
you
are
say
the repercussions of the government's
harsh eviction, yes. So the government will have done this in the modest way, and people will have lived with peace until today.
But then the government has, we have people in the Mau region who have actually voluntarily vacated from the forest. Why should we have some people willing to go out and some people not willing to go out? And to make it worse, leaders, government leaders, elected leaders come out and even talk about, bringing the country to a standstill. They are not like the other people who throw stones. They, if they decide to go for, what kind of talk is that? Isn't there a better way to solve or to address the Mau issue as opposed to these leaders coming out strongly? And I'm sorry to say this, it's quite open that most of the leaders who are doing this are on the other divide of the Jubilee.
I believe most of these leaders are people who hail from the region of Mau and Elgeyo and around Uasin Gishu. And they are in support, or they're in solidarity with their people as elected leaders. And I believe that what they didn't support was the manner in which the evictions were being conducted. If you listen to some of these sound bites by these leaders, they are actually opposed to the manner. They're saying, these are people who have bought land. Yes. So not unless other lands can be accorded to them, which is equal to their value, then there are people who are more, but not, there are people who are aggrieved, and they have to showcase their grievances to the government. So, like you've said, the government is currently in a divide. That is why we see another faction supporting the government policy of eviction, and the other faction is opposed to it. So these are people who are elected by the people of Mau.
Yes.
And even the government, the people of Mau voted duly.
They voted
for the
extensively for the Jubilee administration.
Yes, and it's quite absurd that the government is now trying to be harsh on them. So as Kenyans, I believe the best thing to have been done was the government to really be accountable for the money that had been contributed by different organs and even non-governmental organizations for the proper evictions to be conducted. And the government must tell us where this money was taken so that these Mau people are now just being thrown around. For your information, the court in Nakuru was unable to conduct business last week due to lack of quorum. Judges could not be facilitated to sit to decide on the Mau eviction issues. So that just shows you the level of impunity. And you know, this has come with the austerity measures that Ekuru Yatani is now extending to the judicial arm of government. And these austerity measures have gone a further extent to interfere with the performance of the judiciary. So it's like we are killing judiciary, which is equally and most importantly an arm of government like the executive itself.
So the executive, can we say that the executive is, twisting these other arms of government to find its way?
As things stand, that is what they're making us believe, because we have no other way to judge them due to what has been going around. Look at the way in which the austerity measures were even ensued. Parliament was not aware of that issue until it was in the public. So these are personal agendas that are coming from the Treasury, and they want to heat on other arms of government so that they remain the strongest. But that is not the way to operate in a democracy. Yeah.
Now, all this, I would say, are the effects of a divided administration, if I may say that, if I'm not wrong by saying that.
Of course, Jubilee as an administration and Jubilee as a party, when it came to power, had its own agendas and it had its own initiatives to make Kenya a better country or to work for the people. And I can say that the handshake has slightly made the government unstable.
Why
and
so?
It has interfered with the agenda of the government. Immediately after the handshake, we saw the president saying that they are now in an initiative to fight corruption, to fight graft. And for a while, the Big Four was forgotten, and the administration was going around looking for leaders to jail for over the weekends. So you see, justice was not delivered because during that period,
but then
leaders were arrested on Fridays and released on Mondays.
Or do you want to tell me that the leaders who were arrested for alleged corruption, the likes of Rotich and the others, do you want to tell me that that was a witch hunt, that it was not fighting corruption?
They were fighting corruption, but it was not fighting corruption the right way. Did they win? Was justice rendered?
No,
that
I
should
mean,
be
the cases are still on.
That should be the question.
The cases are still on. We don't expect an overnight conviction, do we?
But no. In fact, we have to start taking corruption issues with the stern action possible, because this is a menace. It is something that is eating into our country. So we should treat corruption like an airborne disease.
Contagious.
Because, contagious. Because we have seen how it has managed to raise our borrowings. And our borrowing stand at 9 trillion because of corruption. We borrow money which is stolen. So we have to take people to books very fast and not delayed by once somebody is proved guilty and he cannot be accountable as it is dictated by Article 232 of the Constitution. On public service ethics and values. So if a leader does not meet such values and does not pass the integrity level, why don't we deal with them? Yes.
Now, let's hold that thought. I want us to discuss a little bit more about the issue of, corruption, because this is where the fallout was, clearly started rearing its head, where some, leaders from the Rift Valley had the opinion, or were of the opinion, that it is people who according to the deal that the president and the deputy president had in forming their government, people who are allied to the deputy president are now the ones who are being, witch hunted for corruption issues and even CSS and stuff. But then those who are allied to the president were not being touched. And I want us to discuss that. And also, when we come back, I want us to look at the issue of the BBI. There's quite a lot that we're being told about the BBI, and I'm really surprised that right now the BBI, those people speaking for the BBI seem to be very sure about what the BBI is containing and what it's going to give us, as opposed to, when it comes to supporting or not supporting it. Yet the report is yet to be released, and I wonder where they know all this. Well, we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we're going to discuss this matter, so don't touch that dial. Welcome back, viewer. If you are just joining us, you're watching GBS Morning Extra, and today my guest is Owuor Omondi, a political science student at the Moi University, and also a political analyst himself. We've been discussing the issue of the Kibra politics, and right before the break, we were talking about, matters that are dividing the Jubilee administration. One of them being, chief among them, I would say, is when after the handshake, we heard about the president setting a stand and speaking about, fighting corruption in the country. But ever since the fight against corruption began in the country, what we've realized is that a section of leaders who are allied to the deputy president are the ones who have actually been crying foul. They say that they are being targeted and so on and so forth. And this is just among the many things that have caused a divide in the Jubilee administration. We've heard of assassination attempts. We've heard of unfair treatment. And right now we're talking about the Mao issue, which is actually, according to the leaders, they feel like a particular community is being targeted in the Mao area. And we've had a lot of exchange in terms of what is happening at the Mao. But then we've also had the issue of corruption being fought in the government. Now, our focus today is the divide within the Jubilee, and we've seen leaders from Jubilee coming out and supporting the opposition in the spirit of the handshake. And my guest here, Oworo Mundi, has alluded to one thing, that the BBI, to some extent, destabilized the
government's agenda.
The government's agenda. And I don't know what you think. You, viewer, you can also send us your view, your comments, suggestions, or opinion on the same on 21144, and also you can do that on our Twitter handle is actually at Kenya GBS. Our hashtag is Morning Extra. You can give us your opinion. You can also share your views on the same. Owor,
yes.
Why would you say that, whereas the handshake is actually touted as the restorer of calm in the country after the disputed 2017 elections?
The reason why I say that is that the Jubilee had their manifesto and agendas way before the BBI came into play.
Yes.
And there is a way in which government already must have organized itself in the step or in the attempt to achieve its own initiatives. So I don't believe that whatever is in the BBI is synonymous to the Jubilee Manifesto. Then that will not even indicate any change, because the President and Raila are bringing the BBI as a way of change, which is again debatable. But now
a way of changing the constitution, which varies from, which cuts across from, national ethos to, election malpractice and injustices and so on and so forth, to responsibilities and, and rights of Kenyans. And I think the BBI in itself, having mentioned that, now we have leaders talking about the BBI and seeming quite sure of what the BBI contains, yet the report has not been made public.
Yeah, I had Honorable James Agra Orengo mention that if people are opposed to the BBI, then they should provide alternatives. So that is somebody who is speaking in surety of what is in the BBI. And I must say that people like Orengo and his co-leaders in ODM and those in Jubilee who are in support of the BBI are already aware of what is indicated in that document.
Raila himself said he doesn't know what is in the document.
No, those are just sideshows. So then if Raila is not aware, if Raila is not aware of what is in the BBI, then why is he championing for the BBI?
Exactly. I mean, it is an initiative that they brought on board, but then the BBI formed a team that went down to the publics to collect views. And if I may, I'm not his spokesman, but if I may say, I think to some extent I do agree with him, because they set off the initiative, yes, but then it was that the initiative should go around the country and collect views from different groups and organizations, which happened. Now, what was collected by the BBI team as they go around the country could be what he doesn't know. But then the 9 points, we know that the 9 points are in the BBI report, if I may speak saying that.
Basing on the 9 points, it means that the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and the President Uhuru Muigai were already aware or are already anticipating of a situation of which BBI must have surpassed. So already they are the initiators of this project.
Yes. And
by giving us the 9 agendas is a way of telling us what they actually are supporting or are in support of. And so what is indicated in the BBI must be something that is yet to come to qualify these 9 agendas.
Yes.
So they cannot really say that they are like not aware of whatever
What
the
is
report
inside the
contains.
document,
Because I believe that during the meetings of this committee that was given the initiative and the role to play, that they must have been informed of the same.
Yes.
They must have been briefed as the heads of the initiative. So these people are alive to the fact of the BBI, and what they should say is that we should wait for it to be launched, which is not right, because other leaders cannot wait for it to be launched, yet they are opposed of whatever is in the document.
Yes.
So we have to question the BBI as early as now until it is launched. And when it is launched and people are not in agreement with whatever it contains, it is right. And if people are in support of what it contains, then again it will be okay. But it is a time for Kenyans to be really alive, and they should wake up and really only pass those issues which can bring development into the country. Because this time for political games is way gone. We really need to start seeing real issues and actions on the ground.
I want us to listen to a bite by the Kitui governor, Charity Ngilu, who also spoke about the initiative. And she alluded to a fact that has elicited a lot of reaction, especially from those who oppose the BBI, that they've not seen a leader from their region inside the government. And the BBI is going to ensure that, there's that, what do we call it? Representation.
Inclusivity.
Inclusivity.
The inclusivity
So
they talk about.
There has been debate about what this inclusivity means. Does it mean that specific individuals should be in the government, or does it mean that, it's the inclusivity of Kenyans? Let's just listen into that bite by Charity Ngilu and then we talk about it.
Haiwezekani watu wawili miaka yote na ni wale wako na watu wengi sana. Haiwezekani. Sisi leo tukiongea hapa Mwingi, hakuna mtu mmoja wetu kutoka region ya Mwingi, Kitui, Makueni, Machakos ako kwa hiyo serikali. Wabunge wako hapa, I can talk authoritatively. Hatuna mmoja. Katiba ni lazima tubadilishe. Na tulisema 2010 tulisema huko pahali tunaweza kubadilisha, lakini tupitishe, tutabadilisha when the time comes. Wale walikuwa wanasema hii katiba ni mbaya, tusipitishe, siku ya leo wanasema sasa hii katiba ni nzuri. Iko kitu wanakula huko. Iko kitu.
That, and also there's the fact that she's alluding to, which is something that seems valid, that if you look at wengine wale ambao walikuwa wanapinga hii katiba wanasema sio mzuri, sasa hivi ndio wanaiunga mkono. Wengine, of course, who went against the BBI, we know that the formation of the Orange movement that time was during the Banana and the Orange, and we know the founders of the Orange movement. They are now friends. Raila and Uhuru were on the same side.
Yes.
Ruto was on the other side. The Deputy President William Ruto was on the other side. He was really against this current constitution when it was being during the campaign that the country was going to change the constitution before the promulgation in 2010. But then right now he's quite comfortable with the way things are, and now he's among the leaders ambao they are leading to wale ambao walipinga na sasa hivi wanasema iko. This inclusivity, according to Ngilu, what do you read in her version or in her understanding of inclusivity?
I think Charity Ngilu has spoken as a leader who has really lost focus of delivery, because she's talking about representation of a few individuals in government. In my own perspective, if that is what actually the BBI are advocating for,
the inclusivity that
inclusivity is about granting seats to a few individuals from particular tribes, then that is a wrong way to go, because we not only need a few individuals in government, but we need service delivery to our people way back in the ground, because if we create positions for these a particular people.
Yes.
Are we able again to create positions for the entire 43 or 44 tribes that are available in this country? So each county and each constituency have a representation in government. And if you ask me, it is the MPs and the MCAs in unison with the government who should really do much for their people, because they are the people who understand the needs of the individuals they represent. Because a leader should reflect the society. That is what it said. So, and again, politics is about interests. And people like Charity Ngilu could be looking for interests, and they could be taking care of their own personal interests.
Now, having said that, Bonawar, there's also something that we also need to accept, that when you listen to these people supporting the BBI speak, they're vouching for a parliamentary system of governance, which will, according to them, see members of parliament, elected members of parliament, being appointed as cabinet ministers. Now, that, according to them, is actually bringing now the inclusivity in terms of, if we have a minister from Kitui, we have another minister from Turkana, we have another minister from a person who has been elected by the people, it feels to them as more, as opposed to what we call the technocrats cabinet, which, you will agree with me, brought a lot of issues in Kenya because it clearly did not represent the face of Kenyans. It was dominated by two tribes, which I will not mention, and Kenyans know about that. Would you rather go for that system or go for this other system where it is the two guys at the top who decide what and who to have there? And when they fall out, now you see the repercussions, how government is now falling apart.
I believe we have one of the best systems in the world, the presidential system, and the current devolution that was ensued. I think what we have failed to do as a country is to embrace the spirit of democracy and devolution. And I will tell you that I'm not in support of the parliamentary system, because it is something that will eventually bring confusion. I mean, if you want to elect somebody as an MP and then eventually becomes the cabinet secretary, aren't we giving these people too much power? Aren't we giving these people too much resources? Is it not that these people are now not only going to be dictated than they have been done for in the past? It is like we'll be returning the powers of the president that were actually tamed by the 2010 constitution, if you are alive to the fact. So I think
but they're talking about they're talking about a more powerful, what will you call it, a prime minister who will be the head of government.
Yeah, so if you look at the parliamentary system of government, again, it is not, I'm not ruling it out as a bad system of government, but I believe that if Kenyans can agree with me, then we are more stable with the presidential system of government than the parliamentary system. I mean, let us first ask ourselves some questions that why is it that now is when we want to change this constitution that is still very young? Why haven't we implemented the constitution to its fullness? Why are we neglecting other articles of the constitution and reading selectively?
Because when we were passing this constitution in 2010, all Kenyans agreed that there was a percentage of the current document that was not, agreed upon by everyone, and that it needed some amendment. It needed some changes. And now, 10 years down the line, we're looking at the constitution and we're saying, okay, we've been with this constitution for a decade now. We've seen the loopholes. It is now time for us to go back and revisit what we had left not working. And also, we've seen some areas that we need to correct. Can someone argue like that?
Yeah, that can be another line of argument. But again, I will ask such a person that have we really tried our best? Have we really shown the political goodwill? Are we really honest with each other? do we really mean well for this country?
For this country.
Why are we now coming up with a sudden change in the constitution? I mean, is it not because we want to create positions for other people? Because I will tell you that honestly, the BBI has only one serious issue, which is the parliamentary system of government. Because the other agendas, we have other different avenues of dealing with them. They are all in place. If you're talking about national values, how many times has the Constitution echoed national values and principles and ethics of service? Article 10, Article 232. Have we not embraced these articles of the Constitution? Are we really honest? That is where we should really begin from. It's not about change, because what if we realize that this dark past that we are trying to run away from is eventually where we end in the next 5 years? Will we want to change? Will we be a country that is changing the law each election or each decade?
Let's look at it a word like this. In 2013, we have a disputed election. Again. And part of the main reasons actually that we went into this promulgation, into this amendment, or the reason why we decided to change the constitution, that was immediately after the 2007 post-election, 2008, 2007 election violence. And it was clear to Kenyans that we really needed to change the constitution. Although talks had begun earlier, but then it now dawned to us that to stabilize the country politically, especially when it comes to elections, Kenya needed a document that would help us sail through any election that we come through. Not that after every elections, people have to fight, people have to die, people have to be evicted, and so on and so forth. Right now, again, we saw in 2013, we had an issue. In 2017, we had an issue. Is it not time for us to go back to the document and find a way to settle this matter?
I'll tell you that all these issues are a making of our own liking, or they are man-made.
So is that by the politicians or by Kenyans themselves?
Because let me tell you, these issues of post-election violence are man-made by politicians. And I will tell you one thing, that we don't have a problem with our law. We have a problem with the political will and the independency of institutions. And I want to tell you for real and for sure that if the IBC has been credible, or if they tell us that they have been credible in the past, since they were brought into position, then they will be lying to us. You currently know about the IBC that we have in place, the IBC that is even yet to conduct a by-election. Yeah. It is not a stable IBC. Yes. So it is the IBC that we should really, it is the IBC matter that we should really be talking about.
Not the
and the issue of election legality. How do we become more prudent? How do we become more legal? How do we strengthen the IBC? How do we enable it to work minus interferences? How can the IBC, that is the talk we should be having.
It's about the credibility and the independence of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
Of the Boundaries Commission. So it should be left to work as an independent institution that it's supposed to be. And without man interference.
As things stand now?
As things stand now, I think we are still in a bad position, because the IBC itself, I don't think they are well equipped or even ready to conduct an election if it were tomorrow.
That's your opinion?
Yes.
They say they're ready. They conducted in Malindi, in the recent by-election, they've conducted several by-elections, and right now they are the ones handling the Kibra by-elections.
By-elections are small elections, and they are easy to manage. I was trying to manage
general election.
Imagine of a general election. Yeah, but the IBC, if you'll agree with me, really needs to be made more independent, be provided with the resources it needs, so that they can deliver for us the kind of elections that all Kenyans will desire. And again, this presidential system and the inclusivity you talk about, I think it has been because other leaders have not been able to stand by their ideologies to the end. Because, you know, currently in Kenya there's no peace. Because I will tell you, to me, peace does not mean the absence of war. But peace is actually the availability of justice, the access to justice. Is there justice in Kenya? But otherwise, if issues are not dealt with once and for all, then all these things will keep on coming up.
Keep on recurring.
Yes. And we'll blame our own selves. So we need to start by having honesty. Like I said, dishonesty by leaders is our main illness today. Because the persons who are opposed to the constitution themselves currently are the people who initiated it. They're the people who suggested it for Kenyans.
Of which we'll also agree that they said it's not a perfect document, but let's work with this and let's do our amendments as we continue. Let's go into another referendum if need
But
be.
do all Kenyans agree that these are the changes that we need to make? You know, we need to wait for the document to come so that we'll be very equipped to analyze it and make really good information about it.
The 9 points were the opinion of the two leaders,
Yeah.
you know, at least to settle things, which they did. I mean, Calm did return into the country. Sobriety in terms of allowing business to go on as usual. As we go into looking at the document, because clearly, let's say there was never the handshake.
But through this,
Let's say there was never the handshake.
through this,
where do you see Kenya?
through this, are we telling somebody that it is right for you to cause chaos and then we'll make you comfortable in the end? Or it is right to fight for your right and stand by it to the end so that Kenya get that kind of a revolution that we need right now? Because if we continue licking other people's egos for another period, then we are not going to do well for Kenyans, because Kenya need to operate. If the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga felt that he won the elections and he was ready to fight for his right, then he would have fought for it to the end. Why did he go to the extent of swearing himself as the people's president and then ditch that and come and have a handshake after several people had lost their lives? What can you do to the family of Baby Pendo, for instance, as of now? There's nothing, but we are here spending billions. So leaders need to be honest, and we need to really push only those agendas that are well-meaning to our country and not greed issues. Yeah.
So let me ask you an unlikely question. So your opinion of the BBI, what's your opinion, what's your general opinion of the BBI?
BBI is a document that is championing one agenda, which is the parliamentary system of government, but covered with other issues of election inclusivity and fighting corruption. We have the EACC. Let us empower that commission to fight corruption. So this one agenda has been colorfully covered by several other agendas. But it is the fate of Kenyans to either stand by it or vote it out, just like the Punguza Mizigo initiative. So we'll have to wait for it to mature. But I don't think it is the right time in this country to come with such initiatives of electoral alliances and formations of political parties. We need something to really hold on.
When we find
material.
When we find ourselves in a stalemate, then we have to come out of that. And I think it's just, one would be allowed to reason out that the handshake or the BBI in that matter was one of those rare moments that we have to accept, whether we like it or not. But then maybe in your concluding remarks, because I also am made to understand that our time is up, in your concluding remarks, the campaigns are officially over now for the Kibra by-elections.
Yeah, sure.
What's your prediction?
I will tell you honestly, the Kibra by-election, it has 24 contestants, but honestly only around 3 have really done their best. And I don't know if it is the media that has failed
Three,
to cover.
that would mean
that would mean Imran,
Owalo
and Mariga. But I will say again that.
What about Butichi? He's also been very, vocal. For the Ford Kenya
I don't
guy.
think he stands a chance because look at the Ford Kenya people who came to campaign for the ODM candidate. So I think Mariga stood a chance, but Mariga again has several problems. He's a guy who cannot even vote for himself. And so we have seen the kind of politics that has been played, how Raila has been able to bring leaders from different regions on board. We have seen actually during the yesterday campaigns, there were people wearing the handshake T-shirts and those who are wearing the ODM T-shirts, and they were in unison. So I think the DP's camp has really been weakened because at least a few of his generals have shifted position of stand. And that leaves Raila to enjoy the dominance. So currently, I think as things stand, if it goes like that until the elections, then Imran Okoth will surely take the position. And I think he is well known to the Kibra people. He has a history of service.
He's been the CDF manager for his late brother Okoth.
Yeah, so I believe he understands the politics of Kibra, and he knows what the Kibra people really need, and he should only change those that need to be changed and enable Kibra to rise again if he makes it, whoever makes it. But as things stand, I think Imran
stands a better chance.
Is already indomitable.
Well, we'll wait and see that. Owur Omondi, thank you very much for sharing your views with us here today on GBS Morning Extra. I hope to have you here after the by-election so that we can just talk about that. That's your prediction. His prediction, Imran Okoth stands a chance according to how things look right now. Well, but we will have to wait because the ballot will tell us the truth, who will be elected by the residents of Kibra, and they know better whom they will elect. Well, viewer, we have come to the end of the program this time. For any comments, suggestions, or opinion, you can send us an SMS on 21144. Our hashtag is GBS Morning Extra. Our Twitter handle is @KenyaGBS. My name is Timothy Omondi. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you have a lovely week. For me, it's bye-bye for now.